the traffic. Now, there's a book where somebody is quoted as saying, "This is the road that time forgot," which is back when I worked in the general store, we used that tagline, the old South Wellfleet General Store. That was the store that time forgot. But this is the road that time forgot. And so there's so much history here. This is the hollow. The glacier was in that direction. Water rushed through here, creating this hollow. It doesn't look like much of a hollow yet. But as you go through, during the hurricane that didn't happen, and I drove down that road, leaves weren't even moving. It is so protected down in here, which is one of the reasons why they wanted to settle down here, so close to the water. There is so much history here. There's going to be a car coming out, so you can step over this way. There's so much history that you could write a book. Somebody did. All right. How many people have read Eva and Henry? Okay, Eva and Henry is about Eva Payne. It's the mid-1800s. This is her father's house, Otis Payne. He had a boat called the Nautilus, and he would go fishing for mackerel. And then, so obviously, Eva lived here as well. So when she finally got married to Henry Smith, who was a ship's captain, they lived upstairs in that house. The book I've read twice. The third time I read it, I'm going to understand even more because of some of the research I've been doing. But it is 1820 house. Over hidden behind the woods right there is an 1830 house. And I just interviewed the woman who owns it, who turned 100 this year. And that's Jane Cole Geis. She just turned 100. And I got a chance to go to her birthday party, and then I've interviewed her for the Oral History Project. She's the one that knew that this was Townsend Landing. She's the one that knows that this is where you did your boat business. You swam off Pleasant Point. You kept your boats there, you swam here. There was a beach there back then. There's no beach there now. So in this book, they mention Isaac Rich, because they're related to Isaac Rich. And Isaac Rich lived up at the top of the hill on the left is where he was born. But by age 14, too many kids in the house, not enough money coming in. Father, Isaac, a few others moved to Boston, and Isaac would push a fish cart, and he's claimed to be the first person that would be selling oysters from a cart using a horn to attract attention. So he would blow a horn and people would come to his fish cart. He was the oldest boy of the family. And at age 19, his father dies. And he opens a fish shop in Boston. As he acquires money, he starts to acquire boats. Shares in boats. And then that wasn't productive enough. He started to invest in real estate. And so eventually, all three of his kids died young. Eventually, he's sitting on this empire in Boston of real estate that's worth $1.5 million. Not in our dollars, $1.5 million back then he has. Mostly in property. And he has no kids, and he is a strict Methodist, even though this particular area is all congregational. He was a strict Methodist. And And so the very first Methodist campground was held behind his house up there for 3 years, starting in 1819. He had already moved to Boston, but 3 years in a row they had Methodist meetings that lasted a week and would bring in hundreds, if not thousands, of people before it moved over to Bound Brook, which was really the stronghold of Methodism in town. So anyway, Isaac doesn't have any descendants, and he's got $1.5 million. So he makes a deal with a missionary college to open it up to both genders, to all races, creeds. He will donate that money. In between that time he donated it, he died in 1872, and 10 years later they were going to receive the money. It was going to be held for 10 years. When they got the money, it was only $750,000 worth because of the Great Fire of Boston. But it was still enough to fund a college called Boston University. And for a while, Boston University, if you came from Wellfleet, you could go tuition free. Unfortunately, those days, if you still can legally, nobody knows it. So, but that's the founding of Boston University. You go on their website, they still honor them. They've come down. Jane was kind enough to go up the hill with me to point out exactly where Isaac Rich was born, and it was in the hollow below his house is where those meetings took place. So that's Isaac Rich. This road is Payne. The reason this is Payne Hollow Historic District is there are 7 houses from that era, 1820 to 1850, that were all Payne houses. There are even more houses that are in the historic district, including the Townsend House and houses all the way up. But this is the center right here. Any questions about Payne's in particular, or Cole's? It's Chuck's grandfather, Charles Cole, that wrote that memoir that just told us so much about this area. If you want to see pictures, you can go to evaandhenry.com, and they have a gallery of old pictures. Or you can go to the Wellfleet Historical Society site, and there is a search function for pictures, and you can just type in, what you want to see and see what pictures pop up. As we leave here and we head back up, we're going to pass a cemetery that's not there any longer. It was called the Robert Young Cemetery, and it was here. It was started in 1799. The Youngs and the Paynes and the Coles didn't intermarry a lot, but particularly the Coles and the Youngs are related. I think there's only one Payne that married a Cole in lineage, but they were just business partners together. But the Youngs predated the Coles in this area, and it was the Robert Young Cemetery. And when it got sold outside the Young family, the Atwoods who bought it didn't like looking at the gravestones, so the gravestones were moved to the South Wellfleet Cemetery, where the most common name in that cemetery is Payne. There's more Paynes than any other family up there. But the story is that they didn't bother to move the bodies. So so that's even listed in the historic register, that there are bodies there, just no stones. So just as we turn the corner, that house in front of you, their front yard, there should be between 14 and 20 bodies buried there without stones. Right? So enjoy yourself on the way back. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dwight.
I'll walk slow if anyone has questions.